more people are gonna join us today. So I will present myself in a minute. I was already in touch with many of you. Sabir, my colleague Sabir from the Friends of Social Business as well, was in touch with many of you. Thank you so much for joining this workshop today. It's a series of so 4 workshops, one after the other, today and on Thursday. We'll present you also with the program. But it's so great to see so many futurepreneurs from the LATAM region connected today with us. We're going to talk today about social business, and in particularly how to create regenerative social business models to fight environmental and social challenges. And we're going to go a bit into each one of these words almost that you see here. As you can see, this program is organized by the Friends of Social Business. It's an organization that was created, it's based in Germany, and it works with a foundation, the Yunus Foundation, that was created kind of to gather funds from donors who wanted to work with Professor Mohamed Yunus to support in particular youth around the world to develop entrepreneurial solutions to fight social and environmental challenges. Myself, I'm from Zukunftskunden. We are an organization, a venture studio for entrepreneurship and innovation. And we're supporting especially the mentoring part of this program. But I'm here today leading the first workshops of these 2 days. Before maybe we get into the details and we can answer any question you will have, I want to make this session as much interactive as possible. Please write in the chat where you're joining from, donde están todos, and an emoji of how you're feeling today, starting these workshops together. I'm gonna also do it. Okay, so let's see. So we have Arequipa, Peru, Janina, hello. We have Juliana from Colombia, Peter also from Berlin, Angie from Madrid, but you're from Colombia. And Fernanda from Sao Paulo, hello, Sao Paulo. We have Guyana as well, hello, Florence. Hello, another Liliana also from Sao Paulo, Nicolas from Colombia as well. Oh, so we have a lot of people from Brazil, a lot of people from Colombia. Oh, Ecuador as well, Jorge, hello. And La Paz, Bolivia as well. Wow, we basically think touched all Latin America. No, not all, but most of it. Nice to see all of you here. Let's keep this session as interactive as possible. So the moment you have questions, just type in the chat, or if you want to unmic yourself, raise your hands, no worries. So we want to make this session as interactive as possible. And if you have also problems with the language, you didn't understand something, write also in Spanish, in Portuguese, we can answer. I'm Italian, so I understand both languages very well. I just have some hard time in answering, but we have people today who can answer also in any language. So welcome everyone. The first thing that you might be wondering is why such a program and what it is. We're going to see it in detail. Why social business? So we're going to familiarize also with social business as a concept today. And why do we talk about future skills as well? The why is pretty straightforward. I don't have to go into the details. I can share also resources about what you see. We are at a phase in which 6 out of the 9 planetary boundaries that we have and that keep in equilibrium our ecosystems are going after the safe levels. So we know, we see it. There's an increasing climate crisis that it's growing and growing, and this is just exacerbating also some social and economic problems that are already there. So associated also with increasing crisis, wars, conflicts, local political, for example, crisis that are creating more and more problems. If we look only at the climate level, and you can see this is the climate, the planetary health check that is done by the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. We will share all the links, and you can really like follow live how is these planetary boundaries are measured live, and you can see every year where they are progressing. If we talk only about climate change, we know that despite only the 20% of the population lives in the global north, here is where 70% of the CO2 emissions are coming from. But if we look at who is impacted by climate change and increasing problems, is the global south, in particular Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And to that is not only a question of climate vulnerability, but there's also like a vulnerability that is like increasing because of other factors like inequity, marginalization, colonialism as well. So that's why with the UNOS Foundation, we decided to really like support programs that are empowering local entrepreneurs to fight for adaptation to the different challenges, to support their communities that are affected by these challenges. And we believe that these are the futurepreneurs that are aware of these challenges and are fighting for against them, creating innovative solutions. When we look at Latin America, we're going to see it on Thursday. We're going to discuss a bit more about systemic problems. So here is just a glimpse of course, the problems that we identified with the rising of, for example, the agricultural expansion, mining, infrastructure developments in the region. There has been an increase in CO2 emissions as well. There has been a various economic crisis, social crisis also after COVID that are like increasing this kind of like social environmental problems that we see in the region. And it's so nice to see that many of you also apply to our mentoring program, and it's great to see that many of the solutions you're trying to tackle are really addressed to go, for example, to support communities which are affected by these increasing problems, to go against, for example, like to create more adaptation strategies for community in face of floods, extreme weather conditions. So it's really great to see the diversity of solutions that you are trying to provide. As I said, on Thursday, we're going to go deep into the problems. Today, because we have a great entrepreneur afterwards, we wanted to present you better what social business is. You might all know Professor Muhammad Yunus. He received the Nobel Peace Prize for creating the Grameen Bank and the concept of microcredit in 2006. Today, he is the chief advisor of the government in Bangladesh. And what we do as social business experts, we take forward his concept of social business. And we train entrepreneurs around the world around these concepts. What he always says is that social business can help to build a world where the poor are not going to be continuously victimized by global warming, and they are owners of their own destiny and of their own life. And we do have a wide network of people, entrepreneurs around the world that want to solve different problems. There are technology out there that allow us to solve problems even better. But we need a collective action. We need to connect each other, and we need to, of course, also lobby against aid of state to act. So that's why also wherever we build our programs, we really take care of the community around it, and we really connect also entrepreneurs with wide ecosystems. You might have seen you might have seen another definition, regenerative. I'm gonna say later what regenerative means, but we believe that regenerative social businesses can really play a role, not only in creating these solutions that can fight these challenges, but really in achieving systemic impact. And we studied also a series of skills that came out as a game changer in social business, both from the work of Professor Yunus, from the work of all of our social businesses around the world. And we believe that you as social business entrepreneurs do have these skills, and these skills are going to be fundamental to face future challenges. And when we talk about these skills, we call them, sorry, I'm just familiarizing with Canva, human intelligence. And these are all those set of soft skills that we believe all futurepreneurs have, and that come from social innovation, from social business. And these skills rotate about personal skills, in the sense like our own personal authenticity, self-awareness, your inner leadership, your empathy to see the problems out there, your resilience. They go beyond yourself. They go into co-creation, collaboration, conflict resolution, team building, and trust. They go beyond boundaries, which are geographic, which are like perspective. They go into global citizenship. That's also why we meet also together from like these two different parts of the world, multi-perspective. You go into systemic thinking, you can analyze systems, and that's why you identify your solutions. You are mindful about the other people. And finally, of course, on the innovation side, you're entrepreneurial, you're innovative, you think creatively in a new way, you think regeneratively, in sustainability terms, and of course, project management to make things happen and bring things in execution. So these were some skills that we identified that we believe futurepreneurs should have. And then we will explore in the next months also with some of you that's going to be mentored by us. So this program, the moment we bring our programs around the world, we have like this kind of holistic approach. So we build a community. We wanted to first use different platforms to kind of like connect the community, but we decided that we reach out to different communities which are like out there connected to us and more. And we kind of like then bring people together so people can contact us. The moment you join our workshops, our programs, and you're part of our community, you can contact us anytime if you have something that you would like to achieve. We will connect you to different partners in the ecosystem. We run this workshop as capacity building. We provide them resources that entrepreneurs can use to build their future skills, to build their social businesses, to understand how they can fight specific problems more specifically. And then from these workshops, we have selected 20 aspiring entrepreneurs. And thank you so much for all the applications that you sent out. We will let you know by the end of this week who was selected, and you're going to be matched with some mentors. And what we will do is we're going to really go deep into a 3-month program to accelerate your ideas, your social business, and help you build it the way we support entrepreneurs around the world, but bringing in your uniqueness and your specific context as well. So today, and in these 2 workshops that you are talking to me, I'm a regenerative growth and program lead. I like to define myself as a growth hacker with a degrowth mindset. So I have supported and coached social businesses around the world to grow, but keeping in mind this regenerative mindset to not just sustain, but give back to the environment and to the people more than what you take. So this is a bit the mindset that we apply whenever we coach for growth. And you will meet today Katerin Carrillo. I will introduce her later in 1 hour, the co-founder and CEO of NATUPLA, a social business from Colombia. And Vita Correa, she's the executive director of Fundaec. You will meet her on Thursday. And I will present them later on in the program, but these are the experts. This time is a women team, sorry, but we have like also other mentors and other speakers as well for the next programs. But these are like a very exemplary social businesses that are really driving a systemic change. That's why we invited them. We really wanted you to meet them. This is the roadmap for the next 2 days. So we put the times in Colombian time. So it's yes, GMT -5. So today, as I said, we're going to focus on business modeling, so social business modeling. And then on Thursday, we're going to focus on system thinking to analyze problems in detail. Okay, do we have any questions or point as I said, just feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm conscious of time. I tend to talk a lot, and there's a lot that I want to see with you today before welcoming Katerin. So I will just continue. So what is social business? Sorry, I'm just touching and then it goes on. What is social business? Social business was defined by Professor Yunus in a way that revolutionized the way we see business, not in terms of profit, but in terms of really solving problems. Problems like poverty, access to education, access to health, access to energy, for example. And because of this kind of definition, social business was always a bit confused with charity, because it's really focused on the people, it's really focused on the environment. Per se, it's like a business, but there's some major differences. In this particular focus on solving problems, so it starts from the people and it puts the people at the center. The second aspect, like a business, we have to be sustainable. So a lot of the workshops we do, for example, or the mentoring we do is really to make the model sustainable, that generate revenues. But the difference is that there's not investors getting back dividends. So investors only get the amount that they invested, but any future dividend, any profit is then reinvested into the social business and is given back to the people, to the environment, and to make the social business grow further. So these are the main differences compared to a normal business, and which is also different from a charity. And of course, we put at the center not only the environment, but social businesses are gender sensitive. You might have heard all the social businesses that from Bangladesh, for example, that Professor Yunus created were fully focused, for example, on empowering women and marginalized communities. Also, when you talk about the people inside social businesses, we should take consideration of giving market wage, if not even better conditions. We don't want to make social businesses not sexy. We want to attract the amazing talents because we need amazing talents to solve problems. And finally, very important, being a social entrepreneur, social business entrepreneur, it's tough. It's really, really tough. You face problems, difficulties, financial stresses. If you don't love what you're doing, if you don't do it with joy, you're not going to go anywhere. So that's why we really put it as a principle that you have to do it with joy. Here is a little bit like a different representation of the concept. So where you put the social goal, environmental goal at the center, and then you see all the elements of a traditional business that are part of social business. So as I was saying, a sustainable business model is a clear vision, mission, actionable strategy to measure goals, that executional efficiency of corporates. And of course, the only difference is the profits are invested to solve further the problem and to make the social business grow. Good. And when we will share with you some further resources, because there are different models of social business. But when we talk about the Grameen social business model, the way it is intended originally from Professor Yunus, these are like the principles that we just saw. So you can see that it's like because you put the impact at the core, the social problem you want to solve at the core. There's a different kind of impact credibility in the way you present the model and you operate the model. It relies also on sustainable models to grow. So you need to structure your growth and grow it in a sustainable way. And it's very important for us to have this local approach, so that you always need to, of course, target your local problems, start local, target the problems local, and then we basically have global context and global examples that we bring onto the table that can inspire like new ways of seeing a specific problem or seeing a specific solution. That's really what we like to apply. Okay, now comes the first. We prepared a bunch of templates that we will share also with you, and we will make some examples together. So this is how a social business model Canva looks like. So it looks like pretty much like a business model Canva. Maybe many of you already worked with this business model Canvas, but it has one big difference, and is you see on the value proposition, you have two kinds of propositions, a social value proposition and a customer value proposition, and these go together. And this is where we always start from. We're going to make an example in a moment. Then, of course, when you look at your segments, you have, of course, your customers. You have a model in which you need to sell, but you have your beneficiaries as well. And these are not the same sometimes. So we divide this as well when we build the model. And in the, oh my God, sorry. And in the type of intervention, the way we describe our services, we need to take into account this specific value proposition, two sides. But we will go into the details of it, starting from the value proposition. And whenever we go through every part of the model, we think in regenerative ways. What does it mean? And I've been mentioning it a lot. A regenerative business is a business that then lives. Sorry, just let me move this. I really hate Zoom. Let me just move the chat. Okay, exactly. So it's a business that strives to be net positive, meaning that, as I was saying, you give back more than what you take. And that means that you support not only like ecological balance in the extraction of resources and in the use of resources, but also you provide economic prosperity and social prosperity, social equality. So these aspects always need to be like in our mind whenever we build a social business model. So at every step, we always ask, okay, how is this then regenerative? But we will see it in a moment. And for those who are going to be mentored by us, we will really go in details into these points. Okay, so we go into the details now. I know it's a lot of information all packed. Sorry, I see some question. Nicholas, absolutely. We will share the presentation and we will share a lot of resources, all the templates you're going to have to, you can use them. Snyder, hello. Wow, we were like together in a program. I see your question. So what's the main difference between a social business model and a foundation model? In terms of revenue management, it looks very similar. What do you define as a key differentiator? It is a governance matter as well. So you still have investors that will get back their funds, for example. The foundation model, you have a donor model, right? You receive like donations. You don't have to give back those donations. So one aspect is this aspect. From a tax perspective as well, a social business is a business. So it depends also like legally, it depends on from country to country. For example, in Germany, we have some no-profit legal models that are a social business because they can still generate revenues, but just the profit needs to be, you cannot generate profit, for example. That's still a sort of a social business in some cases, but most of the social businesses are like for-profit legal structures, even if they have at the core a social problem, for example. But I would say between a foundation and a social business is really like the governance aspect, and also in the way it operates, because a foundation operates very differently. It doesn't have like services that they sell, or they just execute projects to solve some problems, but not with a business mindset. So that's also the second difference that I see. And yes, we will also receive the recording. And sorry, I see some also a question on more logistical question. You will receive tomorrow the invitation from Sabir for the next workshop as well. So when you subscribed on Zoom, it was for today, but also for Thursday, but we will send out invitations for that as well. And I don't see other questions. So we immerse ourselves into the praxis to theory, theory to praxis. Okay, so the value proposition. As you see, we have two aspects. The first aspect, and I invite you as we go through these steps to start sketching down maybe, you know, like some thoughts on your own social business, on your own project ideas. And then we can, we're going to see them in the details later on. So start from the problem you're trying to solve for example, the communities that you're serving or a specific environmental problem that you're serving. And whenever you build then your social value proposition, you should integrate this aspect into that. I'm going to show you in a moment how. The second aspect is then also, of course, to think about the impact that you're generating and defining KPIs. And once you really think about, okay, this is the problem that I'm solving, and this is the impact that I want to achieve, and this is how I'm going to measure that, you have your social value proposition. When you go into the customer value proposition sometimes it's the same because your beneficiaries or like the communities you're helping, they're also buying products for you. So here, maybe the social value proposition corresponds to the customer value proposition, but sometimes maybe you're selling some services and products to somebody else, and you need to understand then what is the value for those people to buy your product, and how is this impacting then why is then your social value proposition important? Do you have to specify that you're supporting specific communities, for example, when you sell some specific products? There's an easy way to this is a very complex part, and this is the first part where we always start from, that it's the hardest part to defining your social business model. So we try to simplify this in one simple way. So this is a Canva that we use to go in details to understand really your beneficiaries and your customers. But we're going to use now this that you see on the right, because it really helps you to structure immediately what could be your value proposition. So I'm going to show you now. And we do it for your social value and your customer value proposition. So, for example, a social value proposition could be our trainings help young people in the favelas who want to improve their skills in specific skills, maybe and you specify how you're doing it. By, for example, introducing computer classes, for example. This is like kind of how it would look like a social value proposition. On the customer side, maybe, you know, like those same people are also paying, so you need to find a way to understand why should they pay for that. Or sometimes maybe you're financing that project in a different way, so you're selling something else to somebody else. So 5 minutes, try to think about these two aspects, and then we discuss about the results. Somebody can share difficulties that you had, or like what you got. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the chat.
Hi, Maria.
Hello.
Yeah, I just wrote another question. If it's time for questions, maybe I can read it. if it's faster.
Yes, I'm
better.
reading your question. Is it the one about the examples of social business models?
Yeah,
Yes.
like existing models already, or existing companies.
Yes.
And
So
Patagonia specifically.
Patagonia, you're absolutely right. It's probably one of the biggest social businesses that we know. For example, I don't know if you know Ecosia, for example. It's kind of like the green alternative to Google. And what they do is with every click and every like search, they so for a specific number of searches, they plant trees, and they're running huge reforestation programs. But they get money from advertisements, just like the same model of Google. But and then they reinvest all the profits into building trees around the world. So, for example, that's another example. We have Viva Con Agua as well. I don't know if you know them. They basically sell water. They are like a water company. And basically they reinvest their profits into water projects in the global south. So like bringing water to villages that have limited access to water. These are some examples, but we can make some lists for as well. We can share more after the workshop.
Great, thank you.
You see Liliana is commenting that this is the hardest part to build the value proposition, right?
Yeah, in the beginning, I think to me was the understanding where the money would come from. I had the value, the social value very clear. I wanted to work with the Quilombos communities, that is communities from slaver descendants, but they wouldn't pay for what I want to do. So finding who was the customer was the hardest part, and I think we're still learning. It's been 7 years and we're still learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes it's sometimes you need to create dissociated things, like dissociating in a way. For example, Viva Con Agua, they sell waters to bars, to restaurants, like it's a normal business, but then they work on the other side in communities that have no access to water. So it's very different. So it's going completely very far away, but to apply such a model, you need to be already at a certain level that you have resources, or like that you have wide distribution systems. So it's quite complex. For example, like it could also be to offer some touristic experiences, for example, and then you find the people who could pay for that. But then, for example, you employ the communities you're serving for those experiences. Sometimes we do have some models that are like this.
Yeah. It's my social business, exactly this. Like we work with the communities. The communities is the center of the process, but who pays now? It's the companies and schools.
Or exactly, companies and schools. Yes. Does someone have an example that would like to share, or you're still working on your propositions?
I can maybe help.
Yes, Stephanie is talking.
Yes, I am. Well, I'm running a social venture 3 years ago, and some concept I'm exploring and also implementing is called nano economy. So, for example, I work with a lot of students, and students are the ones who doesn't have money at all. So what do is sometimes I open work study programs. I try to hire people who like with minor skills, like with tiny amounts of money, which is not a lot, but still it's part of the economy, I believe. And on the side, I'm also offering courses for other people who can pay. And I feel like something I have learned so far is that it's quite hard to pass from a less developed country to developing country, because the majority of the people are still waiting to have like a lot of stuff for free, which I understand it comes from like I don't know, experiences in the past, our parents, our grandparents who went through the same system. But when we are in a developing state, I believe people do have money. The problem is that they are more cautious than usual where to spend it. So when you create this infrastructure where you are like also offering some sort of jobs to alumni and stuff like that, you are also co-creating an ecosystem that can work for itself.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Did you apply this? Did you try to shape what you're saying right now in these two separate propositions?
I already did that for my other one. I am building another company. Well, I don't want to say company because it has like very dark connotations, but I am working to, for example, I'm working with rural communities here in Bolivia who doesn't have access to internet. And one of the biggest problems is they don't have access to internet nor electricity. So what we're doing is we're trying to create a pay-as-you-go software system to allow them to pay the energy they use. So it's not a huge bill and they don't have to invest a lot of money because they don't have it. So I believe that's how we are like also making this. And yeah, basically, and I know where to put stuff onto this canvas. It's just like I have it on top of my head first.
Okay, no problem. So in this case, for example, you see that your beneficiaries are going to be also the one paying. So these two are going to be similar, but in the social value proposition, you might look more at the social advantage, and on the customer one more like the real value. Why should they pay for that? Yeah. Somebody else wants to share also if you have some difficulties or any thoughts or questions?
I have a question. If you have like different potential customers, do you have to do one per
Yes.
each?
Separate ones. Most often, and you know why? I go back to the template that we had before. And this is something that you can do it also like later. Different customers might have different pains that you need to tackle. So, and they might want different things, different gains. So based on that, you will have like different customer jobs. Is like what you should do to alleviate this, what should be done to alleviate these pains or create gains for them. And this will translate then on the other side on your products and services. And these might be the same product and service, but you might have, for example, different aspects. You might have different packages that you're offering. If you have, for example, like a digital platform and you're selling a product on a platform, you might have different packages based on the people. You might have completely different services as well, completely different products. So it's always good to do different ones. Eventually, they might converge. So, I mean, the core, your vision, your mission is one, right? But you might, because the value proposition defines the value that that customer sees in your products and services. So this might be different.
Okay.
You're welcome. I see Marcio is also like making a good comment. Marcio, feel free to unmute yourself if you want. And
Thank
share
you,
with
Maria.
everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm just to reread. I think since Maria called me here, good to be with you all. Just to reread my comment here on the chat. I think, like Lily said, and I know Lily from a few years. It's a great project, by the way. It is the hardest part because usually what we've seen is that we are also focused on the social value proposition, which is, of course, what we want to address. But like Maria was sharing, how do we make that sustainable? So it's more like we don't want to charge or kind of do anything. And someone shared the education example too. We don't want to charge from the communities that we're going to be serving. So who else? Who owns the money? In other words, like the products that you're building might be suitable for every other person, like Viva Con Agua, the example, and like Lili, I know her project. So for instance, serving the Black community is not, we don't want to charge from them, but who else could be part of that? Like schools that would kind of experience that, so we could ship it into a product. So mapping the stakeholders, like what kind of industries and partners would be interested in purchasing a product or service for a higher price, and then you would provide like for a lower price, because we're talking about social businesses, for those communities that still would be sustainable. And also, someone asked for examples. Just occurred to me and slipped away. An example from it's from a big brand that made one line of yogurt in Africa. Maybe they added. Yes, that's the one. They added a component for that particular market, and it was sustainable. They were charging lower prices to keep the business going, and like Maria said, to attract the greatest talent to run the business. And just by adding a nutrient on that formula for that particular market, how do you say desnutrição? Lily, help me. The words are escaping me in every language. The people felt health-wise felt better just by adding that component for that particular market. So it's more like, what is the problem they want to solve, and how we kind of look for people who are willing to invest and pay for that to feed the engine.
Yeah. And if I can add to this example, Grameen Danone, they created a totally separate entity from the big company Danone, because otherwise you can't build these social values at the center. We want to create a nutritious yogurt for poor communities in the rural Bangladesh. You cannot, because then you can always be dependent on, you need to maximize profit for the shareholders. So they created a separate social business. And also the way they built that social business, the distribution channels, they were completely different, because they had to go and reach these rural communities. So the whole structure around the business model was completely different from what the company was doing. And still today, it's a separate company and a separate social business. Thank you, Marcia, for sharing this as well. Absolutely. Nicolas, you're saying that it's a bit hard for you to differentiate the two of them. Do you want to share, for example, what is the challenge you're facing with Ventu, right? With Ventu in mind?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. In Ventu, we are a service of mental health for young people. So having a little trouble, like trying to differentiate the value proposition, the social value proposition from the customer. You know, like for me, it's like I'm doing the same, like the impact I'm doing is for the young and the young people and for the family, but I don't know how to differentiate.
They are the ones who pay as well for the service.
Yeah, when it's the adolescent, it's his mother, the one who pays, and when it's like young adults, themselves are the ones who pays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your case, it's very similar, as you rightly said. So it's not wrong that these two eventually will converge. They might seem the same. The difference, for example, that I could see is if you're targeting, for example, the parents, then is our platform helps, for example, like I mean, also in this case, it's not really like addressing the parents, because the target is always the young people eventually that use the service and that are going to receive the final impact of your product. So it's going to converge. And it's normal that you don't have separate ones.
Okay, so in the case, sorry.
Our platform helps young people who want to improve their mental well-being by providing workshops or an ad hoc matching system. Then you describe your product. Okay. And in the unlike, I didn't go in detail into the unlike, but it's very important when you build your social value, like your social business as well. We don't really look at competition as such. We talk more about competition because you might also create, like partnerships with the competitors. But it's very important that you define also how you're different from other solutions out there, because that might create an advantage for you compared to maybe, a business proposition, which is like poorly profit oriented, that it's offering something similar, but more for profit, for example, like the scopes. So especially when you have to sell something, you are competing also with these solutions, which are more profit oriented. And you need to highlight why are you different. And that's also why the social value proposition is so important, because it's usually what differentiates you as well. It creates an additional value that some people might value, for example. So that might also explain maybe if you sell something at a higher price, because there's a specific value that you're also like trying to create. Sometimes you might sell at the same price as well than business, for example, solutions. So you could go also into the unlike aspect, unlike these other systems that are out there on the market. I stopped here a little bit more because I know that it's very hard sometimes, and for social business is the hardest part, and that's also very important that the social value and the customer value propositions are very clear, because these are then they drive your direction. You don't have to forget that the impact that is at the core of your social business, and at the same time you always need to be aware of your customer value, because you need to create a sustainable social business model. So that's why I stopped a little bit more on this part. But we will share you also other templates that you can really dig deeper into these aspects. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and ask. I'm going to go a little bit quicker now. For the sake of time, we wanted to also make a little break. Maybe we only do 5 minutes instead of 10 or 15 minutes. But then we have to indeed the market, no? So the segments that we were saying. So you need to differentiate between the beneficiaries and the customers, and understand on the beneficiaries what are exactly the challenges that they're facing, and understanding how you can help them in the short, medium, long term. And on the other side, on the customer side, indeed, who is paying for your products and services, and what are their pains, their gains, how does your product make a difference for them. And these are then like kind of like the operative core, if we want to say, of the model. I gave an order that I suggest to go through it. So once you understand your value proposition, and the other template that they shared will help you to define then your products and services. What is your type of intervention? Intervention for your beneficiaries, and product that you sell to your customers. Then you can start thinking really, usually we suggest them to list really the activities that you need to do. Research for the market, you need to sell the product, you need to do some marketing, sales, so you need to maybe produce something, the product, a platform, anything that comes to your mind, fundraise, any kind of activity that goes around your your objective, and it can help you get there. And then once you have these activities, you go really per activity, and you understand, okay, what kind of resources do I need? Money. Do I need to open some specific IT tools that can help me do this, can help me manage projects, can help me sell an e-commerce website? What people do I need? Can I do this by myself? Of course, no. But then in the case of people, can I get these people as volunteers? Or maybe I need to hire people for this. And then sometimes you think, okay, maybe if I need people resources, can I do it with somebody else? So you map all the stakeholders around, as also Marcia was suggesting, not only for the customers but also for partners. Partners can go in different cross sectors. Can be maybe the government. You need support of the government or some local municipalities. You need the support of, for example, other NGOs could support you. You might need some activists as well to support you in your marketing, but also really in the bringing forward your activities. You might need some specific companies to distribute the product or to produce the product, some partners in that direction. So you really try to think of any partners and key stakeholders that you need to consider. And then like once you have these aspects, then you can also think about the channels, because like usually I do this order because sometimes, of course, when you have like the customers, you can understand already how do I reach your customers, but then sometimes partners can help you and communities can help you in achieve this objective as well, to reach to the beneficiaries or to your customers as well. So you start defining this like more operative parts. We don't have time to go in the detail of this, but you can think about it with this template in the next days or weeks. So these are the parts, the operative core, so to say. And this is the other like hard part, the finances. So it's when you note down the resources and what you would need, you try to understand absolutely, okay, what I really need and how much cost will that be. You will have some fixed costs, which are going to be there fixed every month, every year. Can be a rent if you need it. It can be some specific like costs related to this. Then it can be also if you have personnel, which is hired, is a fixed cost as well, like a personal cost. If you have maybe some consultants or some like freelancers supporting you, maybe that's a variable cost. Sometimes it's more convenient to keep some costs as variable, especially at the beginning. So that when you understand your cost structure, you have an idea, of course, also of, okay, if I want to get here with these customers, these beneficiaries, etc., I might have this cost. I will need this much revenues. And then you go back onto the revenue side to understand how to increase revenues, what kind of sources of revenues. You might have more sources, not just one, for example. You might have more customers, less customers, different also, for example, forms. As a social business, sometimes you can access grants and donations as well, depending on your legal structure in your country. You can, or you might think of different streams of revenues. And finally, then you understand, okay, how am I going to reinvest my surplus? So my profits, how am I going to invest them? And then you go back to the resources that you might need for the future, for example, to make your impact and business grow. So yeah, if you want also like in the next hours, days, weeks, these are some, for example, directions that we give also when you think about the cost. Also think about what is your bigger cost. Be really aware of your big cost, because you can understand also where you can be flexible to cut some cost if you need, but also where going to the regenerative mindset, you don't take the compromise, you don't like take a trade-off on cutting costs, because people come first, for example. On the revenue side, where does your majority of the revenues come from? Sometimes you have high revenues coming from fewer people. Those customers are really important. So, but at the same time, you depend on those. So try to understand how you can like increase your revenue sources. And so how many clients you can get in what volumes. Sometimes it's better to have loyal customers, but get higher volumes rather than maybe, it's a lot of effort to go and pick few, like a lot of customers, but for few volumes. So this kind of reasoning can support you as well in building your cost and revenue structure. Okay. It's a lot in one session, but we will, I hope it helped to kind of like make some consideration. I wanted to maybe open the floor for questions, or we can go back to the other models, the last parts, and we can think about the last parts. Maybe I go back actually to the full model so that we can see, maybe have questions on the full model. Here. Any questions? Or doubts, comments, difficulties you have faced in making your social business model grow? If there are
Can I
no
ask a
questions,
question?
then yes, please.
Sorry. Hi, well, my name is Rias. I'm calling from Canada, but I'm originally from Bolivia.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Here I work as a business coach.
Mhm.
A unique value proposition that you were talking about, it's really something really hard to identify. How do you help your social business owners
Mhm.
identify? Do you have a special, like a specific technique or strategy to help them identify that beyond working on the desk? Like, how do you do that? Because sometimes they've been working for a while, but even with experience and years in the market, let's say, or in the community,
I'm hearing very badly. I don't know if it's only me, it's my connection, maybe that it's bad.
I don't know.
I lost
But
you.
can you hear me? Yeah. Well, Nicolas can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Well, I can write the question here. It's basically, how do you help social business owners identify and their unique value proposition?
I think we lost Maria, at least for me here.
Oops. Sorry, my fault.
No, it's not your fault. Don't worry.
You're okay.
Difficult question, maybe.
Maybe.
I'm gonna I'm part of the project, but not the same organization as Maria. But while she's back, there she is.
Yeah, sorry.
I hijacked the floor.
Riaz, something
Sorry.
happened in my connection. Sorry. Well, maybe I see my face too big. Natalia, remove me from here, please. Sorry, say it again. I understood somehow at the beginning, but then it started getting robotic and I couldn't hear anymore. How to
Okay.
condense everything in one, right?
Yeah, in one or two sentences. Like, how do you help your clients or your social business owners
Yeah.
craft a unique value proposition in a compelling way? You know, that's something that helps them in their business side,
Yeah.
you know?
I think this what we're doing now is, of course, a preliminary, very simple exercise to understand exactly, first of all, really the value that is perceived really from the beneficiary and the customer aspect. And we saw that sometimes these are two different parts, sometimes it's the same. And then comes the next step, indeed, of how to create it in a compelling way. And in that, I think another thing that you need to add is also, for example, like the brand per se, the story of the entrepreneur, of like the social business. So why was it created? Sometimes this, for example, is adding so much value and uniqueness and authenticity in the value proposition as well, because it can be translated. So that's why, for example, we always tell to all the entrepreneurs, it's so important that you tell your stories as well. As a community, as a person, why did you create this? Maybe you lived personally this specific problem. We had, for example, like a social business. We had a project in the past years with BNP Paribas. The employees of the company, they would create social businesses, and then the bank was investing in these social businesses. And one of these, for example, was Tilia, and that was a platform to help people who were taking care of some family members or some close relatives who were sick, sometimes terminal sick, for example. And she was saying she had a very precise story because she was taking care of her mom with cancer. She was alone as a single mom as well. So like it's a story that really makes you feel, okay, it's a big problem for people that to face. So this kind of personal also aspects and make you really understand the reason why in a more authentic way. So that's also something that we always add, for example, into the value proposition as well, or in the story, the manifesto, The value proposition is more like you understand exactly why you're doing what you're doing and the value that it creates for your beneficiaries and for your customers. But then there's also the story of how you bring it forward, not only in terms of your values, but in your partners. These kind of elements, of course, then add to the authenticity of the social business. Marcio, I think please, you have something to add.
Yeah, quickly, just so I hopped on the next meeting, but also to add to Maria, we have to say that with an accent, not Maria.
With an Italian accent because you have Italian origins. Marcio, so...
Maria. Parliamo tutto in italiano dopo. I think we'll get to know more about your projects. We'll get to know more about your projects, but the thing is that to build on your question, how do you say your name? Sorry, Rias?
You can say Rias or Rias or
Rias.
Depends on the language.
I think besides like understanding like what is unique and like it's not only, it doesn't necessarily need to be the solution or the topic doesn't necessarily need to be something out of this world. I think the main point is like, are you solving that particular problem you identified? It doesn't have to be like the latest technology, whatever it is. For more, I know that it appeals to investors, whatever it is, but I think we need to focus on, are we solving the problem? Are we generating profit to make this engine going? So it's more like to keep it simple, you know. And when you say unique, we like Maria presented at the beginning, we face the same problems, and they can still be unique. The uniqueness comes from whether your solution is advancing on solving that particular issue, not kind of finding the most innovative solution. And the most innovative solution, it's debatable what that is, you know. So I would keep it simple, because sometimes we hear that the focus is more on the solution that needs to be disruptive, rather than something simple that it's much more prepared and built out in a business oriented way that will really solve the problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know our next speaker is here, and we also need to take a little break. Maybe you are like overwhelmed with a lot of points today. Sorry, I was smiling because I see Lilian is in good company, and I was like, sorry, when I see like kids, I just go crazy. But so let's take a break. If you, in the meantime, have any other questions, feel free to. We can discuss them afterwards. Sabir, how much break can we take? 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think we can go with 5 minutes. Yes.
5 minutes, perfect. And then I will introduce you to Katerin. So have a little break, some water, toilet, and we see each other in 5 minutes. Good. So welcome back, everyone. So in this first session, we saw there were a lot of right questions because building the model, it takes iteration, it takes a lot of time, continuous challenging your assumptions, and it's a long process. And we saw the difficulty of building the first step of the value proposition. So we continue with more practical examples, like you were rightly asking for some. So I have the pleasure of presenting you Katerin Carrillo. We know each other for some years now. Ended up meeting for a coincidence in Wiesbaden, in the middle of nowhere in Germany, because Katerin was working for the Yunus Environment Hub. So it's another organization within the Yunus ecosystem. She has been working as a program manager, supporting various social businesses from all over the world, with a focus also on East Africa, around the circular economy, agri-tech businesses, energy. She was then an impact officer. So she has a wide background in this direction. And she decided to create her own social business, NATUPLA. which is, I mean, she's going to tell you more about it, but for me, it's like such an example of such a simple concept. Even in the name, it's just, as a marketeer as well, it just sounds perfect. But then she will tell you more about her journey, personal journey, and we can dig deeper into all the questions we had. Katerin, the floor is yours. I can't wait to also hear more about everything. So I think you have your own slides, right? That you're gonna share as well.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Maria, for the introduction. Share my screen. Here. Can you all see my screen? Give me a moment. It's slow.
Yes.
There it is. Can you all see it? Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you for having me. I think it's a really cool concept of like bringing people that has been building their different ideas from scratch. I think that takes courage to do, and we can find here some peers that are also like working on this idea of like changing the world through businesses. So I want to introduce you today what we do at NATUPLA. So our concept is to be able to build something like plastic that doesn't generate waste. So this is my pitch, but I'm telling it as a story because it's more like easier to understand, I guess. And we start by saying that plastic is actually quite amazing. I think that you have heard in many different products and pitches and presentations that plastic is bad. But in reality, when you think about it, it's like we wouldn't be able to be here if it wouldn't be because of plastic. Probably you are sitting on a chair that has plastic, maybe your glasses have plastic, or even your laptop has plastic. So we couldn't believe, like, we couldn't have created the world that we have right now without plastic. But we need to understand that this material that is lightweight, that is cost effective, that has allowed us to bring a lot of innovation. Well, it has a downside, 2 downsides specifically. So at the beginning of the production of plastic, we were using non-renewable raw materials to produce it. So the production of plastic is accounting for 3.3% of the global emissions in the whole world. But at the end of the life cycle of the use of plastic, we have the one that I consider that is the biggest problem, that is plastic pollution. And the problem is that the plastic that is mismanaged ends up accumulating in the landfill or on the water sources. And I think you have all seen the consequences of the plastic pollution problem in the whole world. There is an approach to solve this situation that is working on recyclability. And the problem in countries like Colombia, where we are located, is that the infrastructure for recyclability is not well in place. So it depends on a lot of informal workers that collect, or waste pickers that collect the waste. And it depends, they will recover this waste, or they will sell this waste if they actually getting paid for that. So there is a whole value chain that if the material can be recovered, it is economically viable to recover it, then they will collect it. But if not, like is the case for complex materials or lightweight plastic or dirty plastic that is not easily recycled, then it's not cost effective, so they actually don't pick it up as well. So what we do is that we are working on trying to solve the issue from changing the source, creating plastic from a different source that comes from renewable materials, but also creating materials that at the end of the life cycle are biodegradable. So we design biomaterials that are bio-based and compostable, try to improve the sustainability of the whole polymer industry. Why don't we talk only about plastic, but also about polymers? Because plastics are polymers, but there are a lot of different materials that also have polymers in their composition that are also creating microplastics, or because of the way they are produced, they are highly contaminating, etc. So the business lines that we're working on is first bioplastic to replace hard to recycle plastics, the bioadhesives that are used, for example, on the plastic alternatives. So we create an adhesive that is bio-based, biodegradable, and that is safe for people also, for products that are in contact with food that people will consume. And finally, we are also exploring a new line of biofertilizers for controlled release fertilizers that are currently covered also with a sort of polymer that creates microplastics in the environment and the water. So we are creating a coating for the fertilizers also to avoid the nitrogen loss and the microplastics that are created through the current solutions. Working on the sustainability of our business, for us was always important. Think that sustainability shouldn't only be for a niche. So we aim to create products that are largely available, that are economically viable for companies to buy, to replace the alternatives that they have at the moment. We create materials for what they are needed and how they are used. And this is important for us because from our perspective, plastic is over-engineered. You use a single bag for like the packaging of any of the products that you're gonna buy at the supermarket. This is a material that is really good in terms of the strength, in terms of the water permeability, etc., etc. It's a really great material that you are using for a really short period of time. So we need to match also the way the material is, the engineering of the material with the way it is used to be able to create a product that is not gonna need more resources to be able to be created. And finally, we also want to integrate our product in the value chain of plastic. So we are not producing end materials, we are producing raw materials for the people that is already on the plastic industry to process them, and to process them in the traditional plastic machines. Of course, all of our businesses like frame the idea of making business differently. So we believe in bringing social and environmental impact across our value chain. We do it through acquiring and working with local producers of the raw materials that we have, and also through the principles of green chemistry by improving the way we do our products from the research and development. So this is us. This is a short presentation of us. If you want to find more information about what we're doing or latest updates, you can go to our website or LinkedIn. That's it.
Thank you very much, Katja. As I was saying at the beginning, you see the simplicity of the concept. It's something so, obvious from a business perspective as well, and from a social perspective. Because before we had a lot of discussions, how can you really integrate these two in like a coherent way? And also the model of NATUPLA really shows also what a regenerative model means, like from the resources, the way you perceive the resources, the extraction of the resources, and the way in which those resources go back into the system. Are there questions in the room? I don't want to take the floor. feel free to raise your hand and mic yourself. I don't remember who was working. I think somebody's working also on plastic or on renewable resources in some way, waste, recycling. Maybe not. I do have questions for you, Kate. I made a list of questions for you, so maybe some more questions are gonna come out. Like I was curious to understand, for example, the feedback you're getting from customers. So I know that your next challenges are to build the plant, expand the capacity. You already have some interested customers, if not actually like customers. So I wanted to hear more about the feedback that you're getting.
It has been an interesting process because it's a new material. Of course, there are materials that are already arriving that are made in Europe that people is buying here are high cost, but anyhow, they are working on a niche of the market, so it works for them. But what we have been getting from traditional plastic producers is a lot of openness. They are actually really willing to try a different product, a new product, and that has been surprising for us. We believe also that the current legislation in Colombia is pushing the plastic producers to find alternatives. And in this sense, you can see how they are more willing to try, willing to see if something will work. Of course, this interest comes from the leading team of the company. When you go there to the production plant and start working with the people that actually know a lot about plastic and have been working for the last 30 years on the same machine to make their own products, at the beginning there is a sort of rejection because this is a different material. Only by seeing it, by touching it, by biting it, because that's the way they try the material, you can see there is a different material. So we have had to understand what are like the key points that we need to convince them. Something as simple as, hey, you need to start your machinery or you need to heat your machinery at a lower temperature. They're gonna be like, no, oh my God, this thing is gonna break my machine, you know? And then you're like, no, let's gonna start like slowly, let's gonna do it in this way. You can use my material to clean your machine also because we need to avoid the cross-contamination with the traditional plastic. So there is like a whole process of convincing them. So sometimes it's easier to convince like the manager team because they see the need, they know where the business is going through, and they understand that they need to make a change. But sometimes it's a bit more difficult to work with the people that is actually on the production space. But then you need to find also like the strategies to be able to get to them. In general, we have gotten really good feedback, a lot of openness, a lot of like people willing to try.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine that you need to like not only understand like the partners you talk to, but also who inside the organization you talk to. I can imagine also procurement, and then look at the cost. But then in your case, the cost, you said that you're trying to be as the same as plastic.
Yes, correct. I mean, when I say the same is something that we are like trying to get into, you know, but it's of course difficult. The price of the plastic is quite variable as well. But fortunately also due to the legislation, now it is, or over the last year, it has been like 15 to 20% more expensive for the producers. So they are also willing to pay more now than they were before. And I think that is also something that has pushed them to look more for alternatives.
Great. I see there were some questions
for my charger.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I think there were some questions from Nicolas and Riaz, right? Nicolas?
Thank you, Maria. Katerin, nice to meet you. I have a question for you. Which are the top 3 challenge you have had in this venture of building NATUPLA, and how did you solve them?
Challenges. I would say that the first one is that we're working on research and development. So when you're trying to create something that is new, it takes time and it takes longer than expected. So on the beginning, when we started, we understood this was something new here in Colombia. It was something we needed to develop, but we knew that the universities were already working on some alternatives. So of course, our first approach was to get closer to the universities, see what they have, try to work with them. But in Colombia and in many Latin American countries, the mechanisms for the private industry or the startups to work together with the universities are not well in place. It's not easy to get with a proposal to a university like, hey, let's gonna co-found together a business. I will put like the whole production place and you put the know-how and we go 50-50. No, I tried to make this bold statement to some universities and they didn't understand that. They have been working for the last 20 years on the research. What they want to do is to sell the license or the patent, what they have been creating and working on, to a big company. So it was difficult. We found this challenge. What we did was to create our own laboratory, which has been super challenging as well, but has allowed us also to create our own sort of mindset to be able to do applied research. So research that is also for the industry, that you think even from the beginning, like from the design of our experiments, we can be thinking about what is going to be the cost of that. Is it possible to scale it up or not? So I take into consideration all of these different criteria to be able to design the experiment of what we're doing, because at the end, our goal is not to publish something. Our goal is to have a product that is viable, that many people can access to it, because remember that for us, sustainability is not only for a niche, so it needs to be cheap somehow. We need to be able to compete with the products that are currently on the market. So that was a challenge. That was a challenge in the beginning, and the way we solved it was working, like building our team, building our own laboratory, and of course collaborating. Like we collaborate with the open labs here in Colombia, Tecnoparque, and we collaborate also with universities. The doors are not closed. I believe that in the future we will be able to work with universities in different manners. For example, now we are trying to push a project to be able to measure biodegradability with a university here in Cali. That is not something direct, like to what we do. It's not our field of research, but of course it's something that will impact a lot of like the market in Colombia. So that I will say that is the main challenge, research and development. Of course, that comes also with funding. Research and development is not easy. Like you are not gonna have an MVP in a really short time. So yeah, R&D comes with a lot of challenges.
Thank you, Katerin, for sharing.
Riaz, you had a question before.
Yeah, but I think you mentioned that it was about the costs and how does it compare to the regular evil plastic?
Evil plastic. Is it evil?
Oh no, just
No. Let's gonna say, for example, I can give you like in Colombian pesos, and maybe later we can like do the switch to dollar.
Or in percentage also, like
In Colombian, yeah, let's gonna say, let me think. So if it is costing like, I don't know, 8,000 pesos kilogram of polyethylene, ours will be in 12,000. So it is like 30% higher. But the current alternatives that you're buying here in Colombia are around 20,000, so 3 times more expensive than 2.5 to 3 times more expensive than the regular plastic.
okay, thanks.
Of course, like there is some hidden costs as well. So something, for example, now we're working on is that people will be able to recover our materials. So you know that in the plastic production, maybe you have like 1 kilogram, but then while you set up the machine, or while you have it running, or while you turn it off, etc., then you lose one little part of it. In the plastic industry, it's really easy because you shred that material and then you can just reprocess it super easily. But with the bioplastics that are currently on the market, we cannot do that. So there is always a loss of the material of something like more or less 10% of the material. That is quite high. So we are aiming to create a material also that is able to just be shredded and put it again on the machine, and then you are not gonna face any dust. And I think that when we think about sustainability, when you think about all of these little things, the way something is produced, the way something is used, because in many occasions, this is actually what makes the difference, you know? So if you start adding these little small changes, little things that help, you can create a product that is actually a real alternative.
Yep. Yeah, can I ask another question related? Sorry.
Sure.
It's just that I'm wondering if in the long term it can be even cheaper than the normal plastic. Do you think it's possible, like with R&D, to make, because it would be great to have something better and cheaper, no, in terms of costs, and then it will become.
It will become trendy. Everyone will have it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do believe it's possible. I do believe it's possible. Maybe not less, but definitely competitive with economies of scale and changing the way bioplastic is currently produced. Thinking about the main resources that people is using. That's why we went into the R&D, because that's pretty much the key to be able to make something that is competitive. Like it's fairly easy to have a plastic and put some nice fiber into it, you know, and I can tell you, hey, this is made of cocoa or chocolate or coffee, but in reality it's plastic with 10% of salt on it, with a little bit of something that you are recovering from a different process. But to be able to make that the opposite, be able to make 90% a fiber or 90% a biopolymer and 10% something that helps with the strength of the polymer to make the biopolymer something like the main product, that takes research. So, and that is also where you can actually compete on the cost.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. I remember I make a comment and then I saw I think Stephanie also has a question. In my previous life, when I was working for Unilever and I was responsible to move my full portfolio of mayonnaise from like normal plastic to totally biodegradable plastic, we couldn't do that, so we had to go through phases because there was no supplier able to provide all that amount of biodegradable plastic with the same texture or also the same properties to keep the mayonnaise, you know, in the same conditions. So it's extremely challenging what you're doing, but on the super good direction.
And I love those examples, you know, because then you start thinking, okay, you have margaritas. What do I need for margaritas to be preserved in this packaging? You know, how long am I actually gonna use it? Do I need it to be bio-based? So it comes from a renewable resource, but I also need it to be biodegradable. So at the end, like it will degrade. And what does that mean? You know, it's gonna degrade in soil, or it's gonna degrade in water, or it's actually compostable, so people actually can throw it in the compost in their kitchen. You know, so when we say, okay, let's gonna think about sustainability, but from the design of the product. So I'm thinking about all of this when you say a plastic that can replace manganese. Of course, on top of that, you need to meet the criteria of the company. So it needs to be printable. It needs to be beautiful, like the colors need to be bright. The seal needs to be this kind of seal. So all of these little things is where start adding a level of complexity on creating a material. And in that sense, we also need people to actually understand, for example, like if you have a packaging of a mayonnaise that is transparent or white and just have like a little label that says mayonnaise by Unilever, it's actually also good quality. And what they're doing is reducing the amount of ink, reducing the amount of plastic, because maybe the current packaging of that mayonnaise is over-engineered. You don't need that kind of material, or you don't need that strength of a material just to keep mayonnaise in it. So it's an interesting process to think about each of the use cases that you could have with packaging. But yeah, that's definitely a challenge for those kind of
On
products.
every corner. Stephanie, you had a question, and then also Riaz has another question.
Yeah, well, first, congratulations. I believe being an entrepreneur is very hard and it requires a lot of courage to do that. As a person who is trying to do that, I was wondering whether you have worked with incubation programs or like accelerators, because for some reason it looks like all of these opportunities are focused more on tech, but they forget that there are like a lot of areas that we still are struggling with basic needs stuff. So I was wondering, how did you do and manage that?
That is an interesting question. Is real? There is. Can you hear me there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I think I'm having like internet issues sometimes. There are definitely more programs for tech than for any other industry or area. I have found a lot of support actually from the concept of like green social businesses. So like all of these programs that are like focused on green, environmental, social business, I have received support from some of these programs, but also for like R&D, biotech, new materials, deep tech. That's kind of like the area where I move. So like the key is also to understand where your business is and what is like, how can you fit it into one of these topics that are also becoming a bit more trendy. So definitely the programs are important. We have been part of several programs. I think Maria mentioned it, and I also used to support small entrepreneurs that are on the environmental and social areas of solutions. But anyhow, like when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I still wanted like to learn from people that could teach me or guide me through specific things. So I knew already what a business model was. I knew like the different tools that they can teach you in a program. If you don't know it, go through those programs, because they are also really helpful if you come from, I don't know, you studied psychology and you have never based a business model. I think it's important to go through those kind of programs. But if you already know that, it is also good to get support from specific mentors, people that can guide you, people you can just chat with. Like on the first program I was, it is a program for people that want to return from Germany to their own country to build a business from the German International Corporation. So for me, this program for me was important to have a mentor that is well ranked in the country that I was arriving, my country, but still he knew really well the network. So I will have a call with him and tell him, hey, I need someone to talk to me about vesting, because I want to hire some people and I want to give them some options to have actions within the company. So he will tell me, okay, I don't know about that, but I can direct you to this person. So he will make the contact for me to learn about this. So it's important that you can get this kind of support where you can actually ask for things like, hey, I am having trouble with my team because I don't know how to organize this, or I would like to learn about a methodology about how I can approach new customers for them to be able to test my material, you know. But it's always good to have the community, to have the people, to have someone you can ask to. And of course, the other part is the funding. That is also important for many of us, but it's also sometimes not the only thing that we need. So try to understand that. Do you need something more like basic, like understand what a business model is? How can I create the whole concept of my business? Do you need more like specific support, or do you need funding? In many occasions, like right now, for example, like we're also on a stage where I'm like, I don't want more like programs for mentoring in general. I want like people I can ask specific things about, and funding, because that's what we need. So you also need to choose where to like spend your time. But programs, you can find a lot of programs, definitely. Like once you start following use the algorithms of Instagram and LinkedIn in your favor, and you start following one, then another one, you start interacting with these kind of programs, and then they just come to you, and you are gonna find that there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved.
Thank you so much.
I also make a little comment before passing to the next questions. We closed the application for the mentoring program, but if some of you did not see it since you're here today, if you need for in the next 3 months some support at the beginning to understand your business model, how Kate was saying, or you have a specific aspect you want to understand your value proposition, or which customers to go to, potential partners, something very practical specifically, you can still apply if you want, and we can see what we can do in the next 3 months, for example, or we can direct you to other programs from our side. Absolutely, in the network there is many programs. I know, Riaz, you have another question, but I would love to go to Palti, because there's somebody new asking a question, if it's fine with you, or we can ask your question afterwards. We still have some time. Palti, you want to speak your question loud, or I will read it?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera right now. But yes, I have a question. I would like to become a social entrepreneur, but I think that one of my greatest concerns, or what I'm mostly afraid of, is that since I'm not gonna be focusing on achieving profit, but on people or the planet, how do I achieve financial stability? It's not the same as having a formal job, or at a company where I have a regular salary and stuff. So how have you managed this situation?
That is a good one. Several things. I think the uncertainty, like you cannot get rid of the uncertainty. So only thing you can do is to plan for that uncertainty, to be able to manage it. So savings, here and there, having support of family and friends, thinking about a plan, you know, you say, okay, this year I'm gonna be working on this. What do I need this year to survive? Okay, me as a person, I need to pay my rent. I need to, I don't know, pay the debt that I have, pay this and this and this, so you have your budget. So I would say on the first year, aim for you to survive. If you can have like a budget for you to survive and be able to try something during that year, you're not gonna lose anything. Not even like for me was a bit scary that I will lose, for example, my like the CV that I have built, you know, my professional life. But you're gonna see that in that year, you will put so much effort on a topic that people will recognize you for it. You are gonna gain a lot of experience. So this is actually something that is also super valuable for your CV. So worst case scenario, if in that year you cannot make it, you are still gonna have experience to show. So that is not a real risk actually, because you are still doing something. And financially, it's all planning. But from the business perspective, I will tell you, one thing doesn't go against the other one. Like I know that you want to like focus on people on the planet, but think if you have a product that you can start selling. Think if you can have a way in which you can start generating some small income from that. Because part of the issue is that when we work on an organization that is focusing on people or planet, you usually depend on grants, you depend on external money. And that makes it a bit more difficult for you to find that financial stability. But if you're creating a social business, so you say, okay, I actually have this product that I could start selling, and it can be like an MVP of what you're doing, or you can be providing a service that is linked to the product that you're building, something like that, that can help you to generate a sort of income. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I know it's a right. So sometimes I just think about maybe I can start focusing on part-time building the social venture, and then I can have a part-time job so that I don't completely get off. I mean, but the idea of always planning financially is a great advice. Thank you.
That was actually what I did. I was working part-time during a year as well. I still didn't get rid of the risk when I decided to jump into the full-time. The risk was still there, but it's a great way. But I do have to tell you, you need to extend your working hours. Like I was working nonstop during that year. And that's something we need to understand as well. Like if you don't have that financial security, you can do it, and you can work part-time and work in your business part-time while you start looking, for example, for some financials. During that year, I actually got 2 grants. So that allows me to operate for a year without worrying about the income. But it takes time, and of course it's gonna be a bit slower, but you can definitely do it. Like if you really want to work on that, you can spend your working hours and you can definitely start in that way.
Yeah. And there's some programs as well that give, for example, a salary to entrepreneurs for 6 months. We could also maybe find some of them and share with them with you. It depends on the country. Sometimes they are there, and sometimes it's more like for these tech companies, less social. So it really depends. But that could also be an option. I have a lot of questions coming in, and we have little time, and I also have to go and get my charger. So I'm gonna go. Sorry, Riaz, I asked you if I can go on with the other people, but please also anyone just type also your questions in the chat. Thais, please, you wanna unmic yourself and ask directly your question?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this webinar, and thank you so much for the colleague who just asked the previous question, because it's something that I've been like struggling for the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 years maybe. I'm a Brazilian journalist, and I've been working for the United Nations and for local NGOs for the past 10 years, and now I just decided like to, okay, no, so I'm working part-time as a consultant to focus on my social business. But it's really something that, I don't know, we have to take like baby steps and like to, I don't know, start planning like financially our lives and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing, our colleague for making the questions, and you, Katerin, for answering. I would like to ask something more specific to two things. One of them is, as I said, I'm a journalist, and my social enterprise is something related, especially because I've been in another mentorship before, a regional one here in Brazil, and they were telling exactly that thing that I was struggling also about selling a product and something like that. And as I come from, I don't know, 10, 14 years working only with NGOs, I had a kind of resistance on selling things and just go for fundings and things like that. And then on this brainstorming phase, I said, okay, so why not I should focus only on a specific SDG or a specific cause, like I don't know, I've worked for several causes like refugees, environment, things like that, and focus on communication products for different organizations, and kind of create a network and give support on communication products, advocacy, fundraising for smaller NGOs or networks that are not formal yet, because like in the outskirts of Brazil, we have a lot of those. But then I don't know how to find, because all the kind of funding I find for even for mentorships, and also for when we are launching a social enterprise, we have to say that we are focused on one SDG or on one cause, and I don't know how can I approach that on selling my social enterprise. So I would like to have an advice on that.
I think that the approach is really interesting. You need to find a customer and a product. Sometimes your customer is not your beneficiary. So your beneficiary could be the NGOs, that is the small NGOs, community organizations, community-based organizations, etc. But then your customer could be a different one.
Yes.
Your customer could even be like the funders or the meat organizations that are in charge of like putting the money from the big funders into the place, for example. But you need a product. You need a product. You need to understand exactly what product you have and understand exactly what is that customer that is willing to pay for that product. One example that I can think of right now is I remember how is this called? Like a photograph bank for this kind of organizations, community-based. Like I remember like a person that was working on something related with communication, and like many organizations, when you try to go into one of these photo stocks, you cannot actually find people. You look like someone working on a farm, and then you find a farm in Vietnam, and you're actually making a case about something in Colombia or in Brazil. So it doesn't make sense to get these pictures. So what this organization will do is that they will sell the pictures of the organizations they were working with, of course, with their consent and everything. But it would be like a way of having a product or like to support the work that they were doing that was also towards communication. So I will say, like, the area. So think about maybe what you can reach to, because if you work with the people on the ground, you have access to them, to their stories, to their network, to their products, for example. Then many people that could be your customers don't have access to that, but you do because you work closer to them. So think about this in terms of like, how can you have a sort of product that is linked to the work that you're doing, and maybe think that, yeah, maybe there is another person that is going to pay for that, but your end beneficiary is actually like the people you are working with. I know it's a bit of a more complex model, but I will highly recommend like to brainstorm some ideas with different people about what could that product be, because that will allow you also to be independent. And I think for communication is important, and for funding is important. So yeah, maybe create like with people that is on the sector, think about like I'm like, this was the only example I could think of. Maybe if I sit down and think about a couple of more, I could come up with a couple of more, but I will say sit down with 6 people and that is like working on the same sector and put them all to think, okay, if we have a business that is like this and this and this and this, what product we could sell? And maybe it's a service as well. Like now I'm thinking about another one that is this organization that there is an organization that has like I forgot the name. I don't remember if it is an app or a process or a service that they have, where people need, for example, like organizations need to collect data for impact or to analyze their impact. So in many occasions, they are like based in Belgium or no somewhere else, and they cannot reach out to the people that is on the ground to actually answer a survey, you know. But if you're already working with them, working with the people, then you can actually offer that that you can collect data for them. So that's something also that I have heard.
Yeah. I wanted to suggest also something else. I see also some questions coming on like best strategies to secure grants, to secure funds. Another thing that you could do, Thais, is if you already identified, for example, some NGOs that you would like to work with you, and they will focus on some specific causes. So that could be also your first, for example, like a pilot, and you can start specializing on those issues, those SDGs that they tackle. So that gives you a bit of a focus, because it's easier if you have a bit of a focus to then like also access, for example, grants and some specific opportunities. So you can already start with who is really interested in. You can reach out maybe to, there's a lot of like networks as well that can connect you to NGOs that can offer you services. You need to see always the availability to pay of the NGOs. It's not always, of course, it's lower. So maybe you need to find a strategy there. But one suggestion in general for grants, for these kind of programs, it's a lot of time we see the approach of just describing what somebody do and then asking for the funds, right? So this approach of begging for the funds with foundations or with grants, it doesn't work. So it's very important, and that's why we always start, for example, whenever we design the social business model, to define your impact. And in your vision, really state clearly the amount of people that you would like to help with that specific service. So really starting like describing very well your impact and the value that you bring as a social business. That's what we were saying. So that starting point is extremely important also to get grants. We will share with you some websites of communities that always share grants opportunities in Latin America. so that you can see some that are active. Some go from, I don't know, $20,000, some go with $100,000. That can already be something to start with, especially if you have a team already, or like if you're an entrepreneur, like wishing to do this step. We can gladly share some of them. They're called, some of them are called like justice funds grants, opportunity desk. I don't know if you know it, but I will share in an email some links with Sabir for all of you. We are running out of time. I saw that.
I can answer quite quickly. I'm reading them
Go.
and I can answer them quickly. Sorry, it was my fault. I take too long to answer.
No, I think it's the conversation just started, like going, and now we could stay here for another hour. Go ahead, sorry.
Now I can see the questions here, no worries. I think Riaz asked me like if my product is less carcinogenic than regular plastic. It is, like we use everything that you can find that you could eat, literally. So definitely could have a significant health and commercial value. Is a good point. Haven't thought about the health part of it. Nicholas asked us how it has been your experience finding funds and which paths have you explored. I have explored funding from the ministry, from the government here in Colombia. There are programs available, there is money available. And yeah, I mean, it's a matter of filling up the whole application. That applications take a lot of time. I have went through like grants from the international community, like GIZ, USA, the UK also have like different programs. So it's important to check their agendas. See like if they're working on something like in like similar to you. There are always like private companies also making like call for applications to work on suppliers development, for example. So we have participated from some of like Bosch, Nestle, some other one like open innovation challenges, etc. So I will say find like the channels where the opportunities can come to you. So LinkedIn, really important. Like I say, active on LinkedIn, follow companies and organizations and check where they have their open applications and start looking. Like there are like WhatsApp groups of people that share applications. Like I am in different groups where I know like people usually post when there is like funding available for something. So also like the Ministry of Science, Ministry of Culture, like all of these, like have them on your browser and once in a while check what they have. And yeah, I think like that is like the way I usually get the information. And strategies for securing grants apply. I think that's the one. Understand actually what they are looking for and understand if you are actually like they have a call for proposals. So first check that you meet the requirements, all of them. Check that you're interested also on what they are giving you. And I will also say more like a personal recommendation. Don't change the course of your organization just to be able to apply for a grant, because that's gonna that's gonna make like change your vision, change your path, change the way you do things. So try to look for open, like call for applications that are actually that match what you're doing currently, what you have been doing and what you can do, and the place where you are. Like if you're at really early stage ideation, look for that and don't look for the ones that are like for a stage beyond the one you are. So find that opportunity and make a good application. And I think that's usually what helps you to secure that grant, that there is a match in between what you're doing, what you want to do, and what they are offering, and apply. I think that's the other one. I think the more you send, like nobody can tell you like it's secure that you're gonna be able to get one, but if you find that match, I think you're gonna have higher opportunities.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So anyhow, like we feel free to write your any further questions via email. You can add Katerin. I will tell everybody to just add you on LinkedIn and continue also if they have other questions specifically to you. But
I think Juliana just asked, like, where do you find these communities? It's things that you're part of, you know, like I'm a scholar of the German government, so I have access to some of the information there. I'm a scholar of the UK government, so I have information there. There is COP16 here in Cali next week, so I'm attending events from the Chamber of Commerce there. And then you start finding like those organizations that are working on what you're working. Start following them, start making contacts with them in events, introduce yourself, like, hey, I am Juliana Velez and I work on this topic. So you're gonna start connecting with people that work on your same things. And or if you're, for example, like if you did a master's in a specific university, that is a community. So you can always like check on those places what is available for like push what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to find these opportunities.
Around exactly what you're working on so that it's coherent. I am gonna close this session because I have to run. But thank you so much, Kate. It has been a pleasure to have you again, here working together for this workshop. And you all have been like amazing. Thank you so much for all the questions. And as I said, like reach out. We see each other again on Friday. I made a mistake before, it was Friday. And we continue our conversation. We have an educational social business model. So we move on to the social side so that you can see both sides and how we empower communities more on the social side as well. And today we saw with Katerin the environmental circular economy side. So thank you so much. Enjoy your day. I enjoy our evening. But we see each other on Friday again. Thank you again, Kate. Thank you, Sabir, for the support.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.